Hi, and welcome back to Andrew Discusses, where today we're taking a look at part 3 of the 4-part episode. I should have just did it this way, but same thing. Either way, today we're taking a look at characters. That's right, we did intro, and we did plot. Now it's time to take a look at characters. And in all honesty, this is actually going to be kind of an interesting one. It might be dull as dirt, but it's going to try to be interesting. And I appreciate you hanging out with me and bearing with me. I mean, this is a discussion after all. I mean, I throw the ball out and you get started. But today we're taking a look at characters on Andrew Discusses. Throughout all of animation, stories, movies, TV shows, what have you, characters have always needed to be there. I mean, you can't tell a story without having some type of a character. Even stick figures are technically characters. Stick figure A is in love with stick figure B, but stick figure B doesn't love stick figure A. And then they go to counseling for 7 years. But that's beside the point. Now, this time around, though, it is actually a massive and important thing. See, characters have to be loved by a lot of people. And yes, I know there are some that love to be hated, and that's their entire thing. Because you have the villains, or the bad guys, that are hated, but in a way that people will enjoy wanting to see more of them. You have the heroes, who are always loved by people. Then you just have the regular people in the background, too, depending upon what it is you want to do. But characters are always something that's needed. However, a majority of people never understand that characters have massive flaws. And one of the biggest flaws is that they are hardly ever fleshed out well in other mediums other than their original. Take for an example here, you write a book or a story. You have the luxury of expanding upon that character's backstory, giving it more and more information, and having it take up a chapter or two. Whereas in a TV show or a movie, you have to condense that down mighty quick, meaning that some of the stuff isn't going to make it in the final cut. It's sad, but it's true, and then that's what causes massive issues down the road. Yes, I know it's still me just throwing crap at the wall and hoping it sticks, but it is true. Character development is something that is highly needed, especially when your character has to relate and has to be lovable to a multitude of people. I mean, and I really hate to say it this way, but some of the major companies wouldn't have gotten the way they are without having characters that were lovable and entertaining. Even video game companies know this song and dance very well, and they do it. Albeit not very well, but they do it nonetheless. I mean, Mario is loved by so many people because of how much fun it is to play as him, and you have other game characters. Even ones that make their way into fighting games actually are characters that are based upon ones that people enjoy. Okay, and in the case of Super Smash Brothers, whichever ones are floating to the top right now. But I digress. Character and character development are stuff that is needed. And it is something that is highly needed to have a proper character introduction. Now, therein lies the first problem. How do you introduce a character? And there's where the massive crapstorm usually starts, especially when it comes to movies and TV shows. A character's introduction can be handled very well if done correctly. Introduce the character slightly and gradually over a small course of time. That way, the character's build-up is a massive reveal. It's like you've been getting all these hints, but you don't know who the character is. A perfect example of this would be with Saban's Power Ranger Zeo, when nobody had an idea who the Gold Ranger actually was. But there were thoughts and theories as to it being Billy, but we all know it wasn't Billy then in the end. No, it turned out to be Treo Triforia. But see, we didn't know that at the time. At the time, we just assumed it was going to be Billy, but it wasn't. Then there also is the other stuff. I mean, a character's introduction has to be handled well. You don't want them to outshine the other characters, but at the same time, you don't want the other characters to be better than this character. So a perfect example of this would be, say, you introduce a brand new character into a story that's gone on for a while. This character comes in, mops the floor, and I mean just like flat out mops the floor with the toughest of all enemies. And this is an enemy you've been struggling with for months, weeks, constantly back and forth trying to figure out a strategy to defeat it, and the newbie just comes in and wipes the floor with them. That's outshining the original characters, and several series have already done this and done it very poorly. But then there's also you have the new character show up and they can barely hold their own. That is also a major problem, because now it looks like the character you just introduced is worthless in comparison. Unless they're designed to be that way. A perfect example would be Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball Z, whereas he was literally just supposed to be the bumbling comic relief who actually managed to somehow save the world. I still can't get behind that, and it's been years, but still, how did he manage to save? Never mind. Anyway, that's just one of the main things that constantly happens. You will always have that major dilemma to make. But characters also have other problems that have to be done. You have the design of the characters that have to be drawn into consideration. I am always being told, whenever I would have written a story back in high school, I was always told that you need to describe the person more. You need to describe this character. And that's fine. Describing a character is a necessity. You need to do that. But basically, you have to describe them down to a T. What are they wearing? How tall are they? What are they looking like? You need to give the reader the same image you have in your head versus what they're thinking the character is. Whereas your vision of what the character is your vision, and their vision may not be that great. But they need to know what the character looks like so that they can decide if they like the character or not. Which, again, throws another monkey wrench in the plan. Because that's basically just judging a book by its cover, which is a horrible thing to do. But characters also have other issues to deal with. Besides introductions and design, you have their story. A character's backstory is the main driving force behind them. Why do they do what they do? Why are they always like this? And the backstory explains a lot of it. A perfect example of this would be Tony Stark. We know why he's trying to help people, because his company created a crap ton of weapons and he wanted nothing more to do with it, especially after being kidnapped and forced to create another weapon. He wanted nothing more to do with this. So he decided to go about on a crusade to, fight for justice. Another example would be Batman, whom, after his parents were killed, decided he wanted to take on a crime-fighting mantle himself to help save the city that he loved. And that's the way I always interpreted it. I don't give a crap if it's incorrect. That's how I always interpreted it. As far as I'm concerned, Batman's a rich asshole. There you go. But either way, that's a character's story, and it's their development. But that's the key phrase. That's their story. Another one would be Optimus Prime. We all know how Optimus Prime got to be Optimus Prime. But the thing is, Optimus Prime's backstory helps us define the character as a whole. Optimus Prime was Orion Pax, who was basically a carefree, I just work because I have to Autobot or Cybertronian. And because of intervention and forces unforeseen in the cartoon, he became Optimus Prime because he was destroyed. Orion Pax was basically damaged and he needed to be repaired. And at the time, the Autobots needed a decent leader. Hence, they got what they needed, and Orion Pax got to basically live and continue on. So, yes, there are uniquenesses to the rules. And every rule does have its own exception. However, there are times when characters are supposed to be the polar opposite of how they're designed to be. Those are parody characters, usually thrown out into the wayside for everyone to adore. But still, that's what's needed. I mean, people will often say that they don't like a parody character because they don't like the way that they act. It's not fitting for them. But that's the whole point. They're designed that way. They're the polar opposite of whatever they're supposed to be. A prime example of this would be Arnold Schwarzenegger being a stay-at-home dad. He's not killing anyone. He's not blowing something up. He's driving a minivan. It's the polar opposite of what he's known for. He's known as the action hero. Now he's known as the stay-at-home father. It's the polar opposite. But that's what would make it work. It's a parody. However, there are people that don't like those ideas. And while I understand that, keep in mind, there are necessities when those are needed. I mean, not everything in the world can be serious. Lightheartedness is needed. So you do often need some type of a character and some type of a story that can actually define both of those things. Now, yes, that does mean that you will have to come up with a strange and unusual story, and it will often go weird, but then again, you've already got that settled in back in the plot. So you know what's going on. Now you just need the character to fill it out. But therein lies your problem. You want the character to be great, but at the same time, you want it to somewhat make sense. And it's a problem that everyone has to deal with. But then again, not all characters are like that. Video game characters, as I said, often have to play on the tropes. They have to be some type of a hero or a villain or a companion, an underling, comic relief, a plot foil, comedic foil, what have you. But they're doing it because that's what they need to be. Sometimes you're the character yourself. You're the one that's passing on the tropes that you yourself have to the character. Good example would be a first-person shooter game where you have the option to, do I want to save this person or just flat out end them? You have the choice in that matter, and in all honesty, it's up to you, however you feel. So that character's, basic overlay, as it is, its features and everything else are basically yours to control. You're the one that's giving it and telling it what to do, so it's basically just you. No, there is that. However, like I say, characters are often a complex thing. There's never one good way that people have ever gotten a character right. There are always characters that get messed up, always characters that get screwed up, and there will always be more and more screw-ups as time goes on. I mean, people cannot get something right. There might be a set formula for some stuff, but not everything has that formula, and nor does it work well with it. But then again, sometimes it might just work out well. I don't know. But either way, let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on characters? I mean, do you enjoy how characters are set up? Do you enjoy the backstories that they get and stuff like that? Let's get a discussion going, and until next time, stay tuned for part 4, where we talk about animation. That's right. This is going to be a fun one, isn't it? Until then, I'm Andrew, and this has been Andrew Discusses.